Welcome, everybody, into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Podcast Network. My name is Joe Miller, and you can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, alongside my two co-hosts, former Buffalo Bills legends, Jerry Ostrowski and John Fina. You can find them on Twitter at Ostrowski_Big O and at John Fina. It is so good to have every single one of you joining us, especially those joining us live in the comments section right now on YouTube. Please do us a favor. Please like, please subscribe, whatever platform you are consuming this live video broadcast on. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, chat at us, let us know you're here. And if you're listening to this in post, you can do the same on podcast networks. You can also like and subscribe and actually leave reviews to those as well. But it is so good, as I said, to have every single one of you guys join us. Talking Buffalo Bills news. Jerry, John, before we get into this, how are you guys doing this fine Sunday afternoon?
I'm doing great. I was waiting for Jerry. Jerry always goes first. I was like, Jerry, where are you, man?
Hey, I'm just trying to go through my breathing techniques, John.
We got big news in Tucson, Arizona. There was rumor around for a little while, but I just found out it's a real deal. We're getting an Anchor bar not too far from Casa Fina here, where you guys slept. And just so you know, we burned the mattresses after you left, but it's going to be pretty exciting. It'll be a dedicated Bills Mafia, Bills backers bar. The application is in for that. And I think the biggest issue, I didn't love the bars where the Bills backers were in Tucson, so I watched it at home. But man, Anchor bar, that could be some pretty good times. I'm looking forward to that.
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
I'll say, why in the world does Tucson get a Ted's and an Anchor bar? Tucson. I was there. It wasn't like I got to Tucson and I was like, this needs to be Buffalo Southwest.
Hey, the Ted's, to be fair, is in Tempe, right? Ted's cooking up Salem's hot dogs. That's in Tempe. Anchor bar in Tucson. We're just going to cover the state. All 4 cities in the whole damn state.
Jerry, how you doing?
Buffalonians are smart. Go to another a warm weather state that has no state tax. Lots of Canadians.
We have state tax, Jerry. We have state tax.
You do? I thought you didn't have state tax in Arizona.
We do.
What am I missing? There's some sort of tax advantage in the state of Arizona.
It's just 4. It's so it's 4%, which means it's like 30% less than New York State.
Okay. It's the advantage is it's attached. It's like connected to California, but it doesn't have California taxes. So all the Southern California people are moving to Arizona.
Tons of Canadians in Arizona too, man.
I don't know.
All right, Jerry, what's up with you, man?
Nothing. Just got back from a fun-filled member guest golf tournament down in Dallas. Played at Craig Ranch, which will host the Byron Nelson at the beginning of May. So got to play a course where they were actually physically putting up the bleachers and all the hospitality buildings on the course as we were playing. And it was, it was awesome. I mean, you got to play it was like playing in Buffalo. It was 40-some degree weather. It was rainy, no sun. The rough was about 8 inches long. You couldn't drive on the fairways. It was great, man. I had a blast.
Sounds like our golf trip in Tucson, Arizona, actually.
Exactly.
Well, I'm going to rein this in so that we're not here all night long talking just about stuff, because we could. That's kind of how the three of us are when we get together and we roll a little bit. There's some okay Bills news out there, nothing overly spectacular. I did, title the show effectively just about James Cook and beams going up and houses for sale. And I just want everybody to know, because it was asked of me when we got in backstage, that is not James Cook's house as far as I know. So just so everybody knows, that's just a stock image of a house. I don't know. So James, if you're watching and that is your house, it was I should go play the lottery, because it was an accident and I just bingoed, but I don't think it's his house. But off the top, I think probably the biggest news, and Jerry found this information, the Buffalo Bills had to seek permission from the league owners to get a $650 million debt waiver, because of they're responsible for the overruns, which the stadium was supposed to cost $1.4 billion. It's going to cost 2.2. And the league unanimously approved for them to take on more debt than what the owners are usually allowed to take on. But interesting enough. Thoughts on that, fellas? Any at all, if anything?
No, I guess it's standard operations as far as the NFL goes. When teams are building stadiums, Tennessee has done the same thing recently. The only other time they have a waiver for debt limits is when a person is actually approved and buying a team. I think at that point they can go for a waiver up to 1.2 billion. But no, I mean, you look at a stadium that was originally quoted at I think 1.4 billion. It is now well over 2 billion. So obviously, the Bills are going to file a waiver to try to get a little bit of relief. And who knows, after the last few days, they might be filing a waiver to get a little bit more. But
yeah.
My perspective on this is it's like it's a club, right? You got 32 members of a club, and you need to be able to rein in behavior that could, affect the rest of the group poorly. You don't want somebody going into an excessive amount of debt. And this doesn't really fall into that category because the stadium's going to generate revenue. I think this is probably more or less, different types of activity with their holdings outside of their team, just making sure that, they follow the fiduciary rules of the league. It's kind of I wouldn't be shocked if other teams had to apply for the same waiver for new stadiums in other markets.
Yeah, it's also it's a bizarre position to be in because normally new builds or any type of construction, you plan for 30% overages, which is about where the Bills probably would have been normal as far as debt load coming off of that. And then just with everything coming off of COVID and all the stuff going on with them, like over the last 4 years, it's just, I couldn't imagine building anything right now and trying to get it to fit inside of some sort of a target zone. So overruns upon overruns, I'm sure right now. The steel is up. So that was also one of the things that happened this week. There was a beam ceremony, a final beam ceremony. I got asked by a bunch of people if I went. I did not go. I didn't really need to listen to government officials do victory laps about how much they've done for this city and this team and how much the team means to Buffalo. So I avoided that at all costs.
I'm sorry. I thought I hit the mute button, but
you did not. The whole world heard you laugh. And John Fina's laughing with me, not at
Yes,
me.
I am. I am laughing with you. I 100% agree. I'm not going to go stand out in any kind of weather where either Chamber of Commerce or a snowstorm to listen to a bunch of politicians take credit for something they had nothing to do with.
Yes.
Pontificate. In other news, Brandon Beane I think we talked about this last week, Jerry, but it still is worth chatting about because the Bills haven't made any moves that I know of in free agency this week. Rasul Douglas and Amari Cooper are still potentials as they remain unsigned. They know obviously this offense and this defense respectively. And there's a chance that those two guys could come back. I would dare I say as well, Trey White is another guy that's out there that could potentially find his way back to this roster. Yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Anybody out there that you would like to have, if not one of those three?
I personally don't have anybody in the free agent market right now, and I'm excited to bring back. I mean, if they had to bring back another cornerback, if things don't go well in the draft, I would hope that the Bills, I know that there's almost split 50-50, probably more towards the DL in the first round if they stay in the first round, or at least their first pick. Going that route, I hope to see a cornerback picked early by the Bills, whether it be in the first trading up, whatever. And that's some things we're going to talk about in a little bit. I think that's highly important, especially with the free agent signings they made, even if some of them are not going to be around for 6 games. They've got to get another corner piece at corner. While I believe that Douglas could come back and maybe you limit the number of plays with, rotating with Ingram, or, you got Jackson back. I just think it would be in the best interest of the Bills if they got that young guy in, especially, considering you got Benford locked up now, another guy to come in and get a tandem that you can really rely on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't disagree with anything you said, Jerry. I'd just like to congratulate Beane and McDermott for playing this exactly the right way, right? Waiting it out. They got the draft. They've said, these guys aren't going to drive a lot of business in free agency. If we need them, they'll be back. As I stand on this, I think you let Amari Cooper go, regardless of whether you draft a wide receiver or not. I think he's out the door. Rasul Douglas, even if you draft a cornerback, I think it's not a bad guy to bring back on a limited basis, like you mentioned. And then also, that ability to mentor younger guys. If we do get a younger guy, they're going to be. I mean, you remember when you got to the NFL, man, it was drinking from a fire hose.
Right.
I mean, between just the difference in the playbook from what you ran in college to the speed of the game to the personalities, navigating all that. I think bringing Rasul Douglas back on the right deal is a good play.
Yeah, if you're looking at the contract while you guys were talking, Rasul Douglas, the expectation from Spot Track would be around 11.9 estimated average annual market value. So his estimation is about $11.9 million if the Bills were to bring him back, or anybody. Tre'Davious White, on the other hand, is a little more vague. There really isn't a necessarily idea. I think injuries potentially are part of that problem. And then if you look, go ahead.
Oh, my question to you is going to be, what is your, and you bring up Tre'Davious White all the time. What is the fascination with bringing him back? I just don't see why there's any advantage to bringing him back.
He knows the defense, and if he's healthy, it's an easy plug and play kind of guy.
But he hasn't proven to be healthy at all.
That part is true.
Rasul Douglas also knows the defense.
Right.
Correct.
I don't think there's a fascination with it, Jerry. I think that there's just such a lack of available free agents in the cornerback market now that you're bringing up the names that are available. So I don't see it happening. But one further comment on Rasul, and his projected number is 11.9, but not if nobody's signing him, right? That number can plummet. That number could be 5. That number could be 6.
100%. Right? That's just what Spot Track has on him. And by the way, the Bills brought back Dane Jackson. I think if we were before, if it was a month ago and we were drawing odds on who the Bills are going to bring back first, Dane Jackson or Tre'Davious White, it probably would not have been Dane Jackson, right?
Well, then that should show you all you need to know about what the team feels about Tre'Davious White.
Amari Cooper, free agent wide receiver, is projected to land a 2-year contract worth $37 million.
That's not going to happen. If you look at PFF's available free agent rankings, 4 or 5 of the top 6 are cornerbacks. You got Rasul Douglas is ranked 2nd. Funny that the number 1 ranked free agent by PFF that's available is wide receiver Amari Cooper. Then you got Kendall Fuller, Asante Samuel Jr., and Mike Hilton. That rounds out your top 5. So yes, it's slim pickings, but nowhere in this list, if you keep looking at this list and you go all the way down, to 58, you don't have Trey White anywhere on there. Now that's PFF's list. That's not anybody else's, but no, I mean, I think looking at who's available and, one of the Joey brings up Stephon Gilmore.
Oh yeah. Right.
He's ranked 14th on this list. It's imperative, especially here's the deal, guys. If you bring rookies in, what do you get? You get a cost-effective contract.
Right.
So you get a young player, tremendous upside that has a cost-effective contract for at least 4 years with a 5th-year option if he's a first-round pick. You have to look at that as well. And I think that's the beautiful thing about how the Bills are aligned right now in this draft with the amount. I think they have 10 picks. 10 or 11 picks going in. It puts them around
10 right now, right?
At 10, I think it puts them around 12th for most picks in this draft. Now a team that needs talent also needs cap considerations. You've got 10 options for cost-effective type contracts. So you got to look at that as well. And at some point, we talk about this, not falling in love with your own. You've got to be willing to bring young players in and develop them. And I think at this cornerback spot, with locking up Benford, even before locking up Benford, I think it's imperative that you get an early round pick with one of those guys.
Yeah, as I'm throwing proverbial shiitake at you guys for conversational pieces, I just want you to remember that it's April 6th. There's not a whole lot of meat on bones to gnaw on, so just go with it. I don't really want Tre'Davious White back on this roster. I'm just throwing stuff.
I'm with you, Joe. I get you, man. We still have a pretty exciting topic to talk about, right? I mean, there's always something to talk about.
And we're gonna get there right after this, which I like this. Sean McDermott said in his league press conferences this week, just as a talking point for the three of us, that they need to get back to having more identified special teams players. The Bills were great on special teams the first several years that he was here. when they had Taiwan Jones and certain guys. Tyler Medikevich was one of them. They just had a group of guys that were special teams aces. And you guys played in an era of NFL football with the Buffalo Bills where Mark Pike and there were dudes that were Steve Tasker that were just special teams dudes. And I dare I say the last year and maybe the year before that as well, it kind of waned a little bit. Your guys' thoughts on just importance of them focusing a couple roster spots on some special teams aces?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of it, but you really have to have a guy that shines, like demands a roster spot because of previous performance, right? So I think beyond saying this is our guy that we're going to go get somebody specifically, and it's likely, in the return game, you have to look at guys like Jamarcus Ingram and Joe Andreessen to step up and be a bigger part of special teams and develop, like Jerry keeps saying, develop your own guys. Part of that development is own this portion of special teams. And, it's got to be a bit of both.
Well, I think also you have to look at, and I don't think that everybody looks at it this way, except I do, because nobody talks about special teams until they're not very good. And then we run our mouth about how we have to fire the coordinator and everything else.
We did that, Jerry, because you ran your mouth.
No, somebody in this 3-man, this trifecta did run their mouths, and I don't believe that person was me. So you can figure out who the negative Nancy was of this crew.
Whatever.
But anyway, Marv looked at special teams as another platoon. You have to look at the fact where teams are, there's 35 to 40 plays a game almost that are special teams type plays. And you have to have those guys. We had Mark Pike. We had Steve Tasker. I know Tasker played some wide out and stuff. That was out of necessity because we had a talent deficiency in that area at the time. But you have to keep those dudes around. Obviously we lost Mac Hollins, who was, and Bean talks about the void that he leaves going to New England in the special teams area. We also had, who was our tight end that we released, so it's really, really good at special teams?
Q.
Who?
Quentin Morris.
Quentin Morris. Quentin Morris was another guy that's a tremendous big man teams player that we let go. So, they have to do that. But I also think, too, some people need to look at the fact where special teams a lot of times is kind of a reflection of the depth of your football team as well, because a lot of the guys that are on teams are not your starters, they're your backups. And if you got really good special teams, it kind of usually indicates that you've got some good depth on that team, because those younger dudes and backup type guys are the ones that are on those units most of the time. And if they're performing well there, that means, that bodes well for the team.
John.
Yeah, I think Jerry just took the long way of saying what I said. No, Jerry's right. I mean, you've got to have enough confidence that your younger guys who are in backup roles are going to go and fit and fill in positions on offense and defense. You can't just say you're an offensive or defensive player. You have to have a fit and a role in special teams. Kicking game. Marv did that, but Mark Pike and Steve Tasker literally lived and breathed those roles. And I think because of the way the game is developed, or it seems like there's more injuries now than when Jerry and I played, it gets harder and harder to be able to dedicate, a role to Mark Pike, who was probably not the third guy off the bench on D line, right? I mean, maybe the fourth.
Right.
So
go ahead, John.
So you're limited, that 53-man activated roster and injuries. And, also, look, we played a lot. I think maybe there's more offensive formations being played. There's more defensive philosophy being pushed onto the field. And sometimes you might lose sight on what you're doing in the kicking game.
But you also have to look at the fact that we have signed a big man special teamer this offseason until Lucy pulled the football out from under us, and Charlie Brown missed the kick for the 9 millionth time. Hoyt is known for being a big man special teams guy,
right?
And obviously he's going to be out for 6 games. So I think there's people around that can fill that role, but I think you'll also see him make some calculated signings as far as that goes.
It's interesting. As much as Mac Hollins was the player that was referenced in the response, losing him is a big piece. Losing him on offense is a pretty big piece too. But I wonder, there's a lot to be said for the fact that the Bills used to have a designated kick returner, designated punt returner, Saran Neal, Taiwan Jones. They had, like I said, Tyler Medikevich. Like they had a bevy of dudes that only pretty much played special teams. And I wonder how much he doesn't like Khalil Shakir returning punts and some of his running backs, his, like second string or whatever, returning kicks. I wonder how much of that plays into just some of the thoughts as well. I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I think you've heard some people have talked about it already. Your kick returners anyway are probably going to be your running back type guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to fill that role. So obviously the old school days of the Devin Hesters, where we're bringing in one guy to return kicks and punts, is kind of going out the window. And really, if you're getting a true blue return man, he's going to be your punt returner, and you got your running backs that are going to return kicks. So that's changed also.
And Jerry and I can attest, if we fair catch every punt, I wouldn't care, because how many times, Jerry, have you left the sideline going to the plus 40 and then that flag takes us back to our 18? You start by the middle of my career, I just started walking to my own goal line because I figured there was going to be a flag on a kicking game play. I just faith.
And when you're talking about not having a designated punt and kick returner, it's because of the rule changes with the kick return, correct?
Right, exactly.
Yes, yeah, for sure. The Bills have had those recently, but
I sucked at geometry till I got to the NFL. Then I learned angles real quick about how the shortest distance and all these things. John is 100% correct.
I was going to make a joke at both of your expenses when you were younger, but I'll refrain. Speaking of running backs, moving to kind of like the topic at hand, which, I don't know where this bodes necessarily with Bills Mafia at this point. When the news hit last week, Brandon Beane had basically said, look, we're done talking with James Cook and there's nothing imminent. We're going to move on to, people that want to have conversations and want to basically negotiate. And then the response from James Cook was, well, yeah, then I'm going to put up my house for sale. And there's no reality that it absolutely was because of that. Like, well, I'm getting prepared to not be in this town because frankly, the Buffalo market is one of the tightest in the country, meaning that if you want to buy a home, you better go large because it's going to be sold on the first day that it's listed. And there's going to be about 30 offers on it. So he's not going to have trouble selling his house in that respect. But that was kind of the news that broke. And I felt the first thing I said to both of you was like, the last thing that James Cook needs is for the Mafia to turn on him. And I think you guys know that as players as well. Like this town, if the fans want you out of town, Marshawn Lynch, you're not going to be here. And that's just not really the response I think that we were looking for. I'm putting my house for sale.
Go ahead, John, then I'll give my viewpoints.
Listen, I'm 19 out of 24 days into my yoga session. So every time this topic comes up, I'm taking the 4-second breath in through the nose and holding it and 4 seconds out through the mouth. Jerry, in this day and age of social media, you have the ability to own what you project to your family, your friends, your fan base, your colleagues, everything in that nature. And I think it's a fine damn line that these guys have to walk. In our day, you just let your agent fight it out with John Butler in the dark, right? We didn't have that much to do with it. The Buffalo News didn't know that much about it. WGR didn't have any insight. You start airing it out like this with a guy who's well loved by the Bills Mafia, and then you start playing it hard. That's a bad play. That's douchey, right? You're starting to fall into douchey category with this, and then you list your home for sale. Look, I don't fault the real estate agent who knows they could sell it like that, but the perception now that you put out there against what Khalil Shakir did, what Groot did, all the friendly deals that are coming in that Josh Allen did, I mean, you make yourself just look silly. You gotta shut your mouth. Play out the damn year. Maybe you get 15, maybe you get 17, but this just, man, it ain't for me. And I love the kid, man. I was a huge fan when we picked him. I've been a fan all along. But if he thinks he's going to go somewhere else and get 15, if he thinks he's going to play behind one of the top 5 offensive lines, I think he's whistling past the graveyard.
I will.
Sorry, that's my rant, Jerry.
I will not rant. I'll kind of use logic and factual knowledge and things like that. But you are correct. You look at James Cook, comes to the Bills in 22, pretty good rookie year. 23 has over 1,000 yards, averages over 4.5 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns, 44 receptions. This year, he doesn't have quite the yardage because he has less carries. Still over 1,000 yards, averages almost 5 yards a carry, 16 touchdowns, 32 receptions. Having a tremendous career in Buffalo. He's a tremendous player. He's a difference maker. Is he kind of limited? Yes. I say all this to get to this point. Every situation, every angle of this situation, the Bills have the advantage. The
Correct.
Bills have the advantage.
100%.
He has another year left on his contract. They don't have to re-sign him. If they let him go, okay, after 4 years, if he decides that he's too heartbroken over this and feels slighted and wants to leave, if he leaves, Buffalo will pick up probably a 3rd-round pick in the compensatory round, or a 3rd-round pick compensatory pick. So the Bills have that advantage. If they want to, and there's a player that's falling down in the draft in April, they could use him now as a bargaining chip or to sweeten the pot to move up to that spot to get him. I talked about it on the show last week. I thought they could theoretically move to 15. Maybe they can move up a little bit if they wanted to try to get to somebody, especially with, and I look in the first round, Dallas at number 12 needs a running back badly. They've done a little bit, but they still need another running back. Maybe that's enough for them. They've missed on so many draft picks as far at that spot. Maybe you get a proven vet that's young, and that one, they want to make a deal. So if you look at every scenario in this, and also granted, I still will go back to this. This is part of, and I don't agree with it. I wouldn't do it, and it is a little bit weird. But, it goes to the washing all the Bills picks off of Instagram and everything else. It is part of negotiations, and it's a way that the player can show that he's unhappy, right? So have at it. I get that. But if he thinks he's going to pressure Buffalo by doing this, he's not going to, because they have the advantage in every situation.
And the last advantage that you didn't mention was you got Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, who are only going to get better with more work, right? So he just further reduces his leverage. But to me, it's so much more. By the way, okay, talking about the draft, and again, the same way I think that they're playing it right with Amari Cooper and Rasul Douglas, it's the same thing here. It's a draft capital trade opportunity. And given that you make yourself obviously unhappy with the way that negotiations are going, you're just begging to walk out the door. You're begging to be offered to go. So, you're right, Jerry. Great point. They hold 100% of the cards and the jokers in this scenario. And I think that's a great move on draft day.
And I will say this too, unlike other players that have been on this roster to not be named, he's not dragging this into the locker room or on the field. This is off-season stuff that happens across the league. At least to me anyway, he's not being a locker room distraction or anything like that. He's doing this in the off-season.
As far as if he holds out, he's dragging it into the season.
That's right.
Right. He is. But I was talking about what I know at the present moment, which he hasn't done it yet.
Correct. Couple things. So this is how it begins, right? Big Papa Bill says Cook is washed, right? And I'm not, and this is what the snowball that begins as a little tiny, snowflake rolls downhill on Twitter and all social media, and then just around town. And the next thing you know, because he is becoming negative or continues on this path, if God forbid he does hold out, like Cook is washed, the fan base doesn't want him. And then you end up in situations, like Marshawn Lynch, who is a Super Bowl champion, is going to be in the Hall of Fame. The Bills ran him out of town for basically a 4th and a 5th round draft pick. That's what they traded a future Super Bowl, champion and Hall of Famer for. It doesn't bode well. And even when you look at those what do I want to say? The influences around him, the three of us, as we were chatting this week about it, Jerry, I think maybe you had said, or one of you had said that, he might be getting information from Dalvin, his brother, Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook, to me, is the guy that should be able to bring him to the ground and be like, bro, when I was in Minnesota, I was a top 5 running back in this league. And then they let me go as a top 5 running back, not because of a contract dispute. I think he got his new contract, and then they ended up releasing him. He ended up in different offensive systems, and Dalvin Cook washed out of the league like that. There's an aspect that I would think that his brother would be like, listen, young man, right? You have talent. You might be better than me as a running back. I don't know. Dalvin, I'm speaking as Dalvin.
Yeah, sure.
But give credence to Joe Brady. Give credence to you're playing with Josh Allen, who I never had a chance to play with a quarterback like that. Give credence to the system that you're in and the opportunity that you have to realize maybe what your worth is and what do you want to do. Do you want to take the path that I got forced to take, which was to go someplace else and end up out of the league? Or do you want to take a little bit less money, win some football games, maybe a Super Bowl, and go down as a Bills legend?
But here's the other scenario that nobody wants to talk about. And, we talked about the 3 already. You let them play it out, use them as a pawn in the trade on draft day, or you let him walk and get the compensatory pick. The other thing is this. He wants $15 million, right?
That's what he says.
Right. That's what he says. He wants $15 million. Well, the franchise tag for running backs is only 13.64. So if the Bills wanted to, they could actually franchise him for less money.
Yeah. Well, next year it might be high. It might be around 15, but yes, to your point.
Right. Yeah. So it's the fact that I think that, again, and this might be part of why he wants to try to get a deal done, because he knows that's there. He understands that the Bills can franchise him if they want to. So there's a lot of moving parts in this. Again, I don't believe in the whole going public with all this stuff and being disgruntled, but sometimes that's what you have to do to get your point across. So yep. I don't condemn the guy. James Cook is anything but washed. I mean, He's a tremendous talent in the league.
I don't condemn him either for doing it, Jerry. I'm just saying, if you go play for the Chargers or the Rams in the LA market, nobody's going to care. But in the eyes of Bills Mafia, it just starts to look a little silly as compared to the friendly deals that have been made during this free agency period.
So when you look at the situation, he has an opportunity, an option to sit out or play his this year. And I think Ian Rappaport reported last week that, he'll play out this year. And I don't know where he's getting his information from. Clearly those guys are insiders and they have information that we don't have. It may have come from his agents. Who knows what's going to happen? Regardless of what he does, what did the Bills do? Right? They've got Ty Johnson. I think that he re-signed for 2 years, right? They've got Ray Davis, who's a second-year running back that looked good at times in the limited opportunities that he had. What if the Buffalo Bills, 3rd round, I don't even know, do they have a 3rd round pick, move into the 3rd round, or with the 4th round, with one of their 4ths, or even higher, with one of their 2nds? What if they take a running back? What does that say?
Well, if they take a running back before round 4, I will pass out. And
I agree.
And that'll be the topic of a Big O show on Wednesday night at 8:00. The Big O passes out. Why? And it'll be because we took a running back.
What if they trade James Cook? What if they package a pick and James Cook to move up in the 1st round?
No, but and then you're saying you need to draft a running back?
Well, not need to draft a running back. What I'm saying is what are we talking about? Like, where is this team at? What are your thoughts as far as we've seen it happen? It started with Treylon Burks, right? So the Titans traded A.J. Brown and a pick like nobody even saw it coming in that draft. And then I think Hollywood Brown was traded. Like, there's a whole bunch of players that were traded in that one draft where it became a thing to take like guys that were ready for contracts and just move them off your roster for picks because you're going to take a dude to replace him in that draft. So when you're looking at a situation like that, what are the possibilities? Who are you going up to get? How high can you get? I know in your last week's show, Jerry, in the Big O show, you talked about just the formulas and stuff like that.
Right.
Where is your mind at, or where is your head at as far as how high can the Bills get if they package James Cook in the 1st? Keeping in mind as well, I looked it up. So for frame of reference, he is not, Christian McCaffrey, but Christian McCaffrey got traded for a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th round pick and was injury prone, and obviously has been injury prone since then. I don't think James Cook is going cheap if he's getting traded, but he's not going to be, a couple of firsts either.
Well, I think the big thing is if you look at the Bills and they sit at 30, and the draft value of the 30th pick is 620 points according to the draft capital spreadsheet that's out there that most teams use. You would think if the Bills tried to move up into that 15 to 20 area, it may be putting a James Cook in the deal alleviates them from having to give one of their 2s, or it alleviates them from having to give one of their high number 2. Their high number 2 is worth at 56 is worth 340 points. Their 62nd pick in the 2nd round is 284 points. So instead of having to give up one of those or both, maybe you give up the lower one with Cook, and that allows you to move up, because the one round that the Bills don't have this year yet anyway is a 3rd round pick. They got multiple 4s, multiple 5s, multiple 6s. So you could see them maybe adding James Cook to a deal. But honestly, that would have to be swinging for the fences, looking at a team like Atlanta at 15 that needs a lot of draft capital, because they don't have many picks, and moving up there. I think the common sense, side of things, looking at it, what most draft analysts and people have been talking about as far as if the Bills do move up, while most of them actually have the Bills again doing what they did last year, moving to the 33 or 34, somewhere in there, into the top of the 2nd round again. But I don't necessarily think we'll do that. If you move up, maybe 5 spots in the 26 with the Raiders, that's a possibility. You could possibly move up maybe a little higher than that. I maybe that way, if you just gave James Cook and your 30th, that would be enough, where you wouldn't have to give up any other picks. Because I think the biggest problem with giving up one of your number 2s this year is the fact that this is a deep, deep draft of players that are not maybe 1st round graded players, but there's a ton of talent in this draft. So you want to try to stockpile as many 2s as you can. So
specific to the talent that we need. Interior,
right,
D-line.
Exactly.
Corner.
And we're talking about a D lineman like the kid from Michigan, I believe it's Grant,
yep.
Maybe Harmon from Oregon, or one of the cornerbacks like Jahdae Barron, one of those guys. I think you'd have to move up into the 15 area to get a guy like Johnson from Michigan who could possibly slip. So, I just don't think they're going to do it just to get anybody. It'd have to be at 1 or 2 specific players. Personally, guys, I don't. And I think that the Bills are playing this really, really well in the media. And I think Beane's playing it very, very well in the media. Just, you comment on it when you're asked. You give the stock answer like Beane's given. Hey, we're rooting for the kid. We couldn't get something done now. That doesn't mean we can't get something done before the end of next year or the beginning of next year. And you just go down the road. It would have to be something special, I think, for them to throw James Cook into a trade scenario where they move up. It'd have to be that one guy that they really covet, that they didn't think was going to slip, that did slip.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're looking at a football team that made AFC Championship games with Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. I feel like there's probably a headspace inside that building that even if they don't want to go into the season without James Cook, even if they know that the league is changing a little bit, is becoming a little more run centric. They're probably better in the backfield right now with Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, right?
I think John would second this, because he has his show on Monday night where he analyzes what the Bills do offensive line wise. We're good enough offensive line wise and schematics, between talent and schematics, to where we'll be just fine running the football with who we have, whether James Cook's involved or not. I really believe that.
That's my point. James Cook has turned out some great numbers. You got Josh Allen as your quarterback. You've got a strong group at wide receiver without premier talent, but you've got an offensive line that's opening up the holes. And I was going to mention Gore Jr. waiting in the wings. I just think it's smarter to look at the ability to trade him, to move to get a specific guy that you want, or if that isn't available, you either the draft aside, just tell James, come play football, man. Finish out your year. We'll take care of you. And let the chips fall where they may. Draft a running back in the 6th round, the 5th round, and run them behind the best offensive line or top 5 O-line and top 2 quarterback in the league.
Comment from Connor. Gore Jr. is so small, though. There's been small running backs that have had successful seasons in the NFL. Oliver with the Chargers, who was a UB product, and then after he left the Chargers, he kind of washed out. But he had a very good season or two in LA. It's not great to be small, but the pedigree that's there is just unbelievable.
It's easier to buy pants, though, Joe. You can always buy pants when you're short.
I mean, it has to do with build. I mean, he doesn't have to be big, but if he's thick and he's powerful and muscular, which I truly believe he is, I mean, he'd be fine. But no, I mean,
I'd love to be running behind those 2 6'6" and 6'8" tackles. You just disappear, hit the seam. Remember, every running play is designed for 4.25 yards, right?
I thought it was designed to score.
That was Thurman Thomas, right? He'd turn a 2-yard play into a 4-yard gain because he'd fall and twist and get there.
And finally, also, I mean, if he wants to hold out, that's fine too. I hope you can afford the fine. Oof.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You guys are players. Doesn't that normally get negotiated out when the contract is finally signed? Like,
if a contract's negotiated out.
It does until you put your house up for sale.
Well, the whole entire narrative could change if he's like, "Yep, I sold my old house and I just bought a house twice the size because my whole family's moved into."
I honestly think it would be an absolute shame if James Cook is not a Buffalo Bill.
I know that's what pisses me off about the way.
It'd be an absolute crime and a shame. And I mean, but honestly,
he will be for one more year, Jerry.
Honestly, it's a two-way street. I mean, the other side has to be able to compromise as well. I mean,
and we're not privy to those conversations, right? He says 15. The Bills could be at 11 for all we know, which I think 11's a pretty nice little number. That's my birthday. I mean, go for it.
Let's leave this episode with the response to this. The question is, if this drags on and it becomes, I don't want to say ugly, but borderline, just not a good look. And the Bills are very much cognizant of the way that they look in the media. And I don't mean Terry Pagula. I mean like McDermott and Bean and just kind of the front office as far as that goes. When you look at Stephon Diggs and some of the other stuff, they made it very clear that they don't want a diva presence in a wide receiver. You almost wonder what that means if it does get a little bit just unsettling personality-wise, if it becomes a locker room distraction as far as that goes. And then I guess the question that I have is this. You guys played with some of the, you played with Hall of Famers. You played with a slew of them. And let's be honest, Andre Reed wanted the football. He wasn't a me player necessarily, but from my understanding, he went back to the huddle every single play when you had one, or went back to the line and told Jim he was open. I'm open. Throw me the football, which is effectively what Stephon Diggs did, right? Andre wasn't demonstrative on the sideline. So where's the line between we want team guys, not me guys, versus that guy's really good?
And but why are we assuming though that because he wants a new contract and wants to get paid, he's not a team guy? You go ahead.
I agree. That's a good point.
You go to your job and say, you know what? I know you want to pay me $80,000 a year, but I think you should just give me 60 because I really enjoy it here. Hell no. The minute somebody that's in your field that wants you and gives you more money, you're going across town. I don't get this. Why if a guy doesn't settle for less than value, then that makes him a team guy.
I think it's the motions with it. I think it's the motions with it, the way the story unfolds to the information that we have right now, which is that I'm not getting my way and you're not negotiating and we're not even close. So you've now told the media that we're not going to talk. So I'm putting my house up for sale.
Right. But why does that make him not a team guy?
I think what he said was
business is business.
I think what Bean and McDermott said is we're going to focus on the draft now. We're getting too close to the draft. And I think that's a good way to calm the whole thing down.
Now, he also said that we're going to talk to the guy, that we're going to do the deals that can get done. Is what
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Right.
which all that says to me is that there's a bigger gap between them, and I don't hold either party in contempt for not finding where the middle is. But I'll
Yeah.
say this, for my dollar, I think I would have much more appreciated James Cook coming out instead of saying I'm getting 15, something like, something fun like big payday coming soon, gonna buy a Corvette, whatever, right? And not be like now he stands on this 15 and you never know what kind of guy he is mentally. Anything below that and he feels like he's caved. I mean, it was just a bad way to start it out. I don't love it.
Like I said earlier, I don't agree with the way he's going about it, but nothing on that football field, nothing in the way he plays and what he does has ever shown me that he's not dedicated to the football team,
Agreed.
dedicated to giving full 100% effort and and not being a team player. I don't think that we need to paint that picture.
I don't
This
think
is a
we are.
young guy
I
that
agree
wants
with
to
you.
make money.
I agree.
And
The only disagreement in this whole deal is when Joe said, we don't have enough material on James Cook to do a whole show.
But here's the other thing too, and this is the thing, and I'm not picking on you, largemouth hunter, okay? I'm not picking on you, but I'm going to bring this up. His true value, his value is truly 8 or 9 with incentives. You know what a player's value is? What somebody will pay him. Period.
Right.
So none of us know what his value is. None of us know what his value is.
That's right.
That's
Only the people that cut the checks.
That's rough because I don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to agree that Christian Kirk was worth $89 million. But
it was to them because that's what they paid him.
That's right.
Was he now? Is he now?
Did he end up being worth that? No, he
was
didn't.
Von Miller worth $120 million?
If I go back in the archives from the old rumblings days, I bet you felt he was at one point.
No,
I can tell you what I thought. I was like,
all right.
oh my God, we got Von Miller. And it was like, for how much money?
But I mean, you can't, it's the only dudes you truly know what their value is are the draft picks because they go ahead and slot them and you know what they're going to get. I mean,
you could go back in the Rumblings archives and find many episodes of Joe Miller saying, bring me Saquon Barkley, and people saying Saquon's washed, and now he's $20 million running back doing reverse hurdles.
Would I pay James Cook $15 million a year? No, I wouldn't. But there's probably a team or two within the 32 in the league that would probably do it.
You're right.
And
you were
that's
not
what
wrong.
he's worth.
That's the gamble.
You were
Stay
not
healthy,
wrong.
James. I'm wishing you the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Podcast Network. So good to have every single one of you guys joining us. It was a good show. This is an April 6th, 7th, 48-minute show. So completely unexpected. So good content, good conversation. I love talking to you fellas about this kind of stuff. But for me, for John, for Jerry, for all of us here at Overreaction, tune into the Big O Show on Wednesday. We love you guys. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.